Hi folks, I am so excited to introduce you to our next guest. Now, he doesn't know this, but his work has been an integral part of my own spiritual journey. Twice I've actually attended his conference, the Ayurveda and Yoga Where Science Meets Consciousness conference, and in 2011 I actually took a group of my own students to Parmas Nikitin Ashram, where the conference was actually taking place. So we're going back, my goodness me, we're going back 9 years now. So this gentleman, he is a classically trained Ayurvedic doctor. He is the co-founder of Purnanava Ayurveda Healing Village in Coimbatore, and he's also the co-founder of the Purnanava Ayurveda and Yoga Conference. Welcome, Dr. Ram Kumar.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste. Namaste. Now, Dr. Ram Kumar, you grew up in a family where Ayurveda was part of your identity. So did you ever have a desire to do something different, or was Ayurveda always your path?
Well, actually, Ayurveda was not my path till the age of 15. Though I come from a family where my grandfather was an Ayurveda physician, and my mother's family actually ran or runs an Ayurveda institution, I grew up far away from all this. I was born in Calcutta, in the eastern part of India, and I did my schooling primarily in Chennai, and it was far away from Ayurveda, except for the vacations that I spent in Coimbatore with my mother's family. So I never ever thought that I'd be going into Ayurveda. I wasn't, like other children, looking at normal avenues after school. And then I really don't know what happened, but one day I just decided, yes, I'm going into Ayurveda. And that was it. After that, I didn't think about it too much. But yes, Ayurveda was not part of my life till I actually entered Ayurveda school. It was a very small part of my life till I entered Ayurveda school.
And what age was that?
It was at the age of 15. It was because the particular school that I went to, which was again in Coimbatore, ran a 7.5-year program, which was more a form of what we call a Gurukula program. Teachers and students staying together in a simple setting, bordering the forest, in the foothills of the mountains. And that school also belonged to my family institution. And, probably I visited that school in my vacations before I joined that school. And when I visited the school, it was quite an experience, since I came from the city, and seeing nature and herbs and animals was a very different experience. So that could have been one catalyst in my wanting to join the Ayurveda school. But yes, that was at the age of 15.
That was at the age of 15. So,
yes.
I mean, you've gone on your career. When I mentioned you co-founded the Purnanava Ayurveda Healing Village. The conference, huge project, which I understand you ran every 3 years for over a decade. So, so everything in this center, it sounds to me, it stems from this experience that you've had since you were 15. So everything in its design, in its architecture, the plants, the way the food is grown and served, follows Ayurvedic thinking, while it's still being placed within the 21st century. So how did you go about realizing that vision?
Again, I disappoint a lot of people by saying there was no big vision, actually. We are all normal people, the co-founders of Vaidyagrama Ayurveda Healing Village, an initiative of Purnanava Ayurveda. All of us are normal people. 4 of us are, trained in Ayurveda. We studied together in school 30 years back. And the 5th and the 6th founder, are a couple who became very close to us, who came to us as our patients and then became very close to us. But basically, what united us was a desire to set up an authentic Ayurveda healing space. And I must admit that when we said we want to do an authentic Ayurveda healing space, we didn't recognize at that point of time what it entails. How much the word authentic can be stretched and stretched and stretched. So originally for us, authentic was giving high quality treatment, good quality herbs, and reasonably good food. This is about all that we thought of originally when we spoke about it. And then it kept adding on. We realized that, there's a word called holistic that is used to describe Ayurveda, which means the environment needs to be calm and peaceful. We need to be as eco-friendly as possible. And then we realized eco-friendly means we have to be energy conscious. We have to be conscious of water, conscious of recycling, reusing, restoring, conscious of using local material as much as possible. And all of this was learned along the journey, and we continue to learn. It is not something that we knew right at the beginning. We just kept learning. Perhaps the good part is we kept ourselves open to learning from all sources. Different people came into our lives during this period, and we kept learning. And we realized as we built this healing space, we realized that the external community, the community that lives around the healing space, if they are not leading a good healing life, that is going to adversely affect our healing space. The people who work should also be leading a reasonably good Ayurveda life. So then we realized we have to go out there into the community. We have to teach them, educate them, work with them. And then we were given a rude shock because we were mostly rejected by the villages around us. And, the adult community was not really interested to hear anything that we said. The children were interested, but then they went back to their homes and most of what we said was dismissed. So that is when the next idea came, okay, we better set up a children's home called Balagrama. So we said we will house the children from the villages, those who are desirous of being with us, provide them with everything, accommodation, food, take them to the local school to learn. And along with that, give them a little bit of our learnings. Share with them what we believe is the way one should be living. So it was all organic. And today the same children, they do yoga, they chant the mantras. They are now interested in farming. Being from the village, one would think that farming is what they would love. But initially when we asked the children, what would you like to do? One of the children surprised me by responding that when I grow up, I want to be hacking. I said, hacking? Yes, as in hacking computers. So from there, and can you imagine an ordinary village child is talking about hacking computers and not talking about farming or something which is closer home. But from there, the children have come a long way. They are definitely more, aligned with what we are talking about, what we are doing. So I was just giving this as an example of how organically every aspect in Vaidyagrama grew. All that we had planned for at the beginning was an authentic Ayurveda space which had a few rooms and associated infrastructure to treat patients. And from there, the whole community concept grew.
Now, it's fascinating because if you had developed this in, let's say in England, in one of the towns in England, you'd be under pressure with time, because you need to create that demand relatively quickly to make the model work. So, I mean, it's fascinating that that to me there was a, you know, you're very humble in the way that you share what you're sharing. However, there must have been a great deal of confidence to be able to commit to that idea. So how long? So you say it was actually raising awareness with the children first, and it sounds to me, and then it was the children educating the parents and, you know, the wider groups of people to actually understand what it was you were doing.
So yes, that is going to happen. So the children that we are working with will probably 5 years, 10 years from now become a major influence in the village. We hope, we don't know, and or at least one or two of them could become an influence. But yes, what we know is that we were confident that Ayurveda done well will work for all of us. And I use the word us deliberately, because it is not just practicing Ayurveda on others, but it is about all of us together living Ayurveda. And we were also fortunate that we started from virtually nothing. We did not have a single penny in our pockets when we embarked on this journey. All we had was the confidence and conviction that this will work as we go along. And we started with just 2 rooms. We did not build the 48 rooms that we have now right at the beginning. We started with 2 rooms, and then it became 4, and then 8, and then 12, because there was no money. And, you know, there are so many parts of that story which would be too long to elaborate here. But what we do know is that, you know, little money comes in, we put it in, we build 2 rooms, then we built 4 rooms. And the moment 2 rooms were built, 2 patients came in, and then a little bit of money came, that went into building the next 4 rooms. So it was a very gradual process, and we reached 36 rooms almost 6 years after we began, and 48 rooms just last year. What was good in our model was that it was quite modular. It was not one big building, but it is several homes. We like to call them homes, and each home having 4 patient units. So we could finish one patient, one home, and it is ready to be utilized. And the construction of the next home did not hinder this construction. So that is the way it gradually built. And we had to be careful that you know, the water conservation happened along simultaneously, because we actually went into land that was completely barren, and there was no cultivation happening there for more than 7 years, only due to lack of water. And that is why we got the land. And people thought that we were being foolish in buying such dry land. But for us, there is no land that is useless. And the land that was virtually untouched for several years meant that it was almost pure. It was organic. And, you know, we could actually go about it the way we wanted to. So, yes, I don't, you know, not for a moment did we have lack of confidence or conviction through this entire journey. We had many obstacles, we had many struggles, but we never lacked in confidence or conviction.
You're sending ripples out beyond the village, because you're also training your own practitioners. I understand that there's a 6-week training program that you facilitate on site. So A, who is signing up for that? And B, just tell us more about the program and how it works.
Yes, so yes, that's a new idea that came from one of our students. You know, they studied with us 10 years back in Vaidyagrama. And one of the first pieces of advice we gave them when they came 10 years back is not to look for a structured program. And we said, you are in the middle of nature. You are in the middle of plants and trees and herbs and shrubs. So, walk, smell them, taste them, feel them. Look at living Ayurveda from morning till evening. You can wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning, as is described in the Ayurveda text. You can do your entire daily routine program. You can attend the prayer, do your yoga classes. You can walk with the Vaidyas or the doctors. You are learning all through the day. Unfortunately, today we look for structured programs where we are learning only for, we learn for 2 hours, then we need a break, then we learn for 1 hour. And it's mostly that classroom-based education model, which is nice, but what is even better is to be learning all through the day. You can learn when you go to sleep, you can learn as soon as you wake up, you keep observing your system, you keep observing nature. And I believe that's one of the best forms of learning, because one of the skills an Ayurveda practitioner is not trained in sufficiently today is the observation skills. Learning to see, learning to hear, learning to taste, and learning to do all of this without judging immediately. Many of us become judgmental, and one of the common ways a physician-patient interaction happens is that with every answer the patient gives, the physician is immediately becoming judgmental and saying, oh, this answer points to this particular disease, and tries to move it along that line many a time. Whereas if we are able to hear somebody without judging, without bias, without prejudice, sometimes we can hear a lot more than what is actually said. If we can see a person or without the judgment, if we're looking at a herb and we are trying immediately to find the name for the herb, but instead if we see the herb without trying to process, trying to understand, but just observing it intently, we may actually get a lot more information than through the terminology that we try to ascribe to that herb. So my feeling is that a training program today needs to incorporate living Ayurveda. The theory classes will be there. Definitely the student will learn some elements of theory, and they will also be interning and seeing the patient, working with the doctors. All that will happen, I think, and that is normal. I think that happens in most programs. But what they can do here is actually discover Ayurveda for themselves, if they choose to. It is in their hands.
Yeah. And you're right, because actually, my training as a practitioner, it's been more from a like you say, from that Western perspective of learning modules, and we don't have that opportunity to live and breathe it in the same way. But what we do is we go and do work experience. So in India, working in certain hospitals and in certain clinics. Now this is just all encompassing, because actually as you're studying Ayurveda, like you say, you're living and breathing it. So you're seeing it in its true form and really understanding it from that very core, deep perspective. So yeah. I mean, also I wanted to ask, how do you integrate? So if we just have a look at what's happening at the moment, globally, all around us, we have this virus. And this virus it's attacking us all on a material level. So all of the things that we know and understand at that level are having pressure on them. So whether that's our finances, whether that's our meeting our family and our friends, whether that's our work, which is being compromised in the way that we work. Some of us are able to continue to work online, but otherwise work has also stopped. But teachers such as yourself, it's what are we gaining through that? So in the meditative process, and how is that interlinked with the teachings and the trainings that you give at the Healing Village?
So, the recent global health situation, if it, many have tried to understand it from the perspective of the Ayurveda text, the classical Ayurveda text. And while there are many causes that are told, one particular cause, which is mostly described as the root cause, is adharma. Adharma at every level of society, from the macro to the micro level, from the way a society is governed to the way an individual looks after oneself. Like we are doing adharma to our own body and mind, the way we treat it like a machine, and we race against time, and work like time waits for no one. We have actually run our individual system as well as the community into the ground by this relentless pursuit of that which is not good for us. And I'm using the word adharma in that context, that we are doing that which is not good for us. And hence, the last 3 months has actually been an opportunity for those who choose to reflect, to introspect, to bring about changes in the way they think, they do, they speak, to bring about changes in their daily routines and practices, to start eating freshly cooked home food at the very least, because at least for some part of the lockdown in most parts of the world, one could not even buy food from outside. So, even just eating freshly prepared home cooked food prepared with a lot of love and attention makes a big difference. So, I'm just giving one example, but there are so many such small learnings that many of us can actually take away from the last 3 months. Improving our relationships, our relationship with the environment, our relationship with the food, our relationship with people, our relationship with our own selves. Because probably we have never spent so much of time with our own selves as we have done in the last few weeks or months. So, if we actually take these learnings and apply them as we move forward in life, I think that contributes significantly, just as every drop of water makes the ocean. Each one of us who does a little less adharma in our life is actually contributing to the entire community, the global community, doing a little less adharma. And that itself can be a huge opportunity for healing at all levels, at the cellular level, tissue level, individual, local community, and global community levels. At all levels, we have actually engaged in so much of adharma that this correction was required for us. So, going forward, all we need to do is follow the simple practices, the basic practices that Ayurveda talks about in terms of daily routine, waking up early in the morning, doing the cleansing of the 5 senses, sipping warm water, having cooked food with essential spices, eating what we need rather than what we desire, eating in the right quantity, sleeping well. I think everybody knows this. There is no rocket science in going back to the basics. And if we are able to do this most of the time going forward, we are actually making the internal space as well as the external space a better space to live in.
Wow, thank you. Now, there's a core social vision to what you do, and that's very much, you've mentioned already, creating the community with the children to be educated, but also you also support the retired in a very much you call it loving tranquility. So what are the challenges in maintaining, you know, this level of ambitious system, and also what is the vision there?
The idea, you know, I don't use the word vision because I don't believe we have a vision, but the idea is to create an integrated community which is supporting each other. The human beings supporting the plants and animals, the plants and animals supporting the human beings, the elders being supported by the young ones being supported by the elders. For example, if you go back in time in a joint family, it was mostly the grandparents who brought up the young children because the parents were busy working and making their life. And the grandparents could actually give a lot of love and share experiences with the children, profound experiences, which actually laid a good foundation for their development. And the presence of the young ones in the lives of the grandparents meant that the elders were infused with an extra round of enthusiasm, energy, a desire to live, a desire to contribute. So it was a mutually beneficial relationship. And this is what happens with all sections of society. Everybody has a role to play in maintaining the harmony, in maintaining the balance, in maintaining the happiness and contentment in society. When that integrated community is not there or is disintegrating, that is where people start going to extremes. One either becomes extreme in emotions, or extreme in desires, or extreme in ambition, or monetarily, you know, an extreme desire. We go to extremes when we do not have a community that supports us. And if that community is truly supportive, then music is healing, dance is healing, farming is healing. Every activity within that community is truly a healing experience for the one who does and for the one who's observing or receiving. So this is what we are now working with. And we started with, again, you know, in the villages surrounding us, we have around 150 elders who are, you know, nobody really takes care of them. So we started sending them food around 5 years back. You know, at least once a day, we started giving them food. And that itself made a big difference to, you know, their faces became brighter, they smiled more. They felt that at least there is somebody who's interested in us. That is where we began this journey 5 years back. And as we began, we realized that we need to start creating housing also for them. And not just for the elders from the village, but again, people from all over the world, many of whom, after a particular stage in life, do not know what to do. Because today people have become so nuclear, so single, that many a time, you know, they find themselves all alone. Mm. And so we thought if we can create the space, they can actually come, they can be a part of the community, they can be with the children, they can be with the farming, you know, take part in the different activities, which is actually mutually beneficial. It helps them and it helps the community. And so this is still in the making. These are still very early days for us. The challenges are many. There are, what we definitely know is many people do not understand what we are doing, why we are doing, and where we are going. For example, doctors would think, can't you just stay with seeing patients and giving them treatment and medicines? Why do we need this extended space? So the villagers would think, what are these people doing? Why are they engaging in so many different kinds of activities? But yes, the plan is to attempt to create a sustainable healing village or a sustainable healing community centered on Ayurveda and natural farming, and also all the Indian knowledge systems, understanding them in the context of healing and living, whereby this can perhaps, I use the word perhaps, serve as a model which can be replicated, because I think these are the sort of communities that are required to address many of the current global challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for those that are watching this who are feeling a bit out of sorts, maybe they're, anxious, they're it's getting tough now, we're into week 10 of lockdown in the UK. So, what would you, if you were to talk to them aged 18, what would you say? What's your words of wisdom there?
Well, I would go back to the first sutra in the Ashtanga Sangraham of Vagbhata, one of the Ayurveda teachers of yoga, where he talks about Ayurveda being described for all diseases, starting with the diseases of the mind. And he actually uses a simple metaphor where he describes the desire, lust, hatred, anger, etc. He describes them as various parts of a snake. And he says that to be released from that snake is why Ayurveda is described. And salutations to that practitioner, to that healer who can actually help one to be released from the clutches of the snake. So I think there's an important message there, that while we need to take care of ourselves physically, the mind is a very important space. And if the mind is not quieted, if the mind is not calmed down, if the mind is not freed from the clutches of fear and anger and other such emotions, then it is very difficult for the body to receive whatever we are trying to give to the body. Any nutrition, the body will not receive if the mind is cluttered, if the mind is confused. And that is why I think it is important for all of us today to spend a few minutes. It can be 5 minutes, it can be 15 minutes, but spend that little bit of time breathing deeply, sitting in silence. If we want, we can do some chanting, or we can do some meditation, or just be. We are human beings, but we have got so used to doing all the time that we have become human doings instead of actually being human beings. So we should just be and let things happen. There'll be thoughts running through the mind, there'll be a lot of things happening, but even 10-15 minutes every day of sitting quietly, all alone, breathing deeply, can considerably lighten us in spirit. And when we are light in spirit, the mind is less cluttered. And the mind is less cluttered, it is easier to do those practices which are good for the body. So I think this would be the simplest sharing that we can do in the current context, which needs to be maintained. it appears very simple, but it can have a great impact on our physical, mental, spiritual well-being if we actually do it every day.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Ram Kumar, how can people get in touch with you? How can they get in touch with the Purnanava Ayurveda healing approach?
Well, our website is vaidyagrama.com, vaidyagrama.com, and my email address is, probably you could write it and put it there or something.
Yeah,
it is
we'll put it on. Yeah,
it is ramkumar@punarnava.org. And yes, we are always happy to be here to share, to support, to do whatever we can to help make the world a little better place to live in.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for today. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.